Hey everyone, welcome back to another Bible stroll. We are going to be strolling through First Samuel chapter 4 today. And before we get started, let me start with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us yet again to see another day that you've made. And thank you for this time that we can break down your word and understand it even more, that we can gain from it, glean from it, and be able to apply it to our own lives and be able to share with others. And Lord, we just thank you and love you for who you are and who you've been to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. So we have been going through First Samuel, talking about Samuel, obviously, and we see here that very pivotal thing is going to happen um, in this chapter 4 and going forward. But pay close attention to the names because we have gone over some important names, and these names are going to be important as we go forward. All right. So First Samuel chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "And the word of Samuel came to all Israel." Now remember, Samuel was established as a prophet. God spoke to him, even showed himself in the very last verse, verse 21 of chapter 3, showed himself to Samuel at Shiloh. So we see here that God has established Samuel as a prophet, as somebody who hears from God. Um, Now it says, "Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle." So Israel got defeat there. They got 4,000 people died. Philistines were very fierce in battle, so they were not to be played with. And so they got beat. And so guess what they do? They say, and when the people, verse 3, and when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So, very interestingly, we see here that the people of Israel, not including Samuel, because mind you, notice they have not consulted Samuel, they haven't talked to Samuel. Samuel's not around at this point, right? Um, they decided to go out and do this on their own, and because of that they came to the conclusion that if we bring the ark with us, that'll be kind of like a good luck charm. Which is kind of how they treated it, like if the ark is with us, then there's no way we're going to lose. And so we see here that that's exactly their thinking. And then on top of that, we see verse 4. It says, "So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts." Now anytime you see that word Lord of, that phrase Lord of hosts, that is a military term. The host means army, so the Lord of the army. So they're trying to invoke this military might of the Lord by bringing the ark. It's all right. So he says, "Who is enthroned on the cherubim?" So if you remember the ark, there's two cherubim that are on top of the ark, and then their wings are facing each other. They face each other on the ark, right? So, and he says, "And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God." Now remember, in First Samuel chapter uh, 2 verses 33 through 34, there is a prophecy against uh um Phinehas, Hophni, and Eli, right? That is gonna result in the destruction of both Hophni and Phinehas, apparently on the same day, and that Eli's house would not be Levitical any longer. And a long story short, right? You can go back and review that. So we see here the scene's getting set up for that, right? Verse 5. "As soon as the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout so that the earth resounded." They were excited that the ark was in the camp, but were they as excited about the Lord being in the camp? And that is the actual point of the ark, was that this is the physical representation and embodiment of God's spirit on the earth. And therefore, where the ark was, God's spirit was. However, these folks don't seem to be treating it like that. They seem to be treating it like this golden box is this kind of magical thing that can turn the tide for us, right? So they're excited about the ark being there. Verse 6. "And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, 'What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?' And when they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "A god has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before." So we've discussed this before, how all these different peoples in the region and in the world, they had these gods that they would worship, different gods for different areas. So if you remember Egypt, they worship different gods. The Philistines worship different gods, and so they believed that gods were fighting against each other, and therefore this Israelite God was going to be more powerful than theirs, and so they were scared. Right. So get this. Verse 8, woe to us. Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? Get the plural. These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. So obviously the Philistines don't really know God, the God, Yahweh, but they have an idea of his power. And so we see them, they're recounting how they heard about how God, Yahweh, struck down the Egyptians with plagues, um, and everything. So they know about this thing. They know about God, but they don't really know his true power. And they don't have a relationship with God. Okay. Interestingly enough, this confirms what happened in Egypt and all that stuff. I talked about that before as well. How it was a region wide event that the Hebrews leaving Egypt after all these plagues, and then the army of Pharaoh drowning in the Red Sea. That was a big deal. So sometimes, I've heard certain scholars and things debate, was it the Red Sea? Was it the Reed Sea? The Reed Sea is only like 3 feet tall or something. And it's just like, well, either way, if Pharaoh's army all drowned in the Reed Sea, which is only 3 feet tall, then that's even more miraculous. So, but indeed, it was the Red Sea. If you look at a map where they crossed, where they left from, where they crossed to, it's definitely the Red Sea, which is very deep and very wide, miles wide. So they had to walk miles across. So anyway, but we see here the Philistines know about this, and so they said, verse 9. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated. And they fled, every man to his home, talking about the Israelites. And there was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell. So now we got 34,000 total have fallen in this battle. Verse 11. Now here's a pivotal part. And the ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. So they were apparently with the ark when the Philistines came to capture the ark. They did not leave them alive because they were killing all the Hebrews. So Hophni and Phinehas died, obviously on the same day, fulfilling the prophecy that was given earlier. All right. And then it says, verse 12, a man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn and with dirt on his head. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told the news, all the city cried out, meaning that they told the news that not only 34,000 people died, but the ark was captured, and that Phinehas and Hophni were dead as well, right? Uh, and when Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, "What is this uproar?" Then the man hurried and came and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so that he could not see. And the man said to Eli, "I am he who has come from the battle. I fled from the battle today." And he said, "How did it go, my son?" He who brought the news answered and said, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great defeat among the people. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured." This kind of is kind of symbolic of Job in the story when the servants come and tell him about the disasters that happen one after another. Right. Either way, it's going to be overwhelming for Eli. Verse 18, and as soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for the man was old and heavy. he had judged Israel 40 years. So Eli, we see here, was a judge, right? He judged him for 40 years. Remember that 40 years? 40 years is a number of a generation when we are looking at the Old Testament. So he judged for a generation, but because he didn't deal with his sons, he didn't. He left the this judgment not in right standing with God, right? Because he should have done what he was supposed to do with his sons, right? Um, Verse 19, now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant, about to give birth. And when she heard the news that the ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed and gave birth, for her pains came upon her, right? She was just stressed out and she she gave birth, right? And about the time of her death, the women attending her said to her, do not be afraid, for you have borne a son. But she did not answer or pay attention. So not only did Eli die, Phinehas and Hophni died, but then his wife, Phinehas's wife, dies in childbirth after all this. So we see this whole ripple effect of what's going on here. And verse 21, and she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God had been captured, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured. So see here, she holds on just long enough to name the child and give birth, but she dies as well. All right. Chapter 5. Now, when the Israelites, excuse me, Lord, when the Philistines captured the ark of God, they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. Now, Dagon was one of the Philistine gods, and the reason they brought the ark of God to the house of Dagon is because they believed that Dagon had given them this victory, and that Dagon was more powerful than these Hebrew gods, which remember they called them gods plural. So they more powerful than these Hebrew gods. So they brought it in as kind of like a victory lap, right? And it also showed that the ark was subservient to Dagon. So this was like a show of power of Dagon as well. Verse 3, and when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen face forward, face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. Now that's kind of interesting because Dagon can't even stand himself back up. So this guy, this Dagon is obviously a false god. He's not a real god. They're worshiping this false god, but and at the same time they have to pick him up because he's fallen over. Now, mind you, for Dagon to fall over is going to be a big deal because they wouldn't make Dagon just to be unstable. So for Dagon to fall over means something must have happened for Dagon to fall over, right? And they know something has happened, but they pick him back up. Look at verse 4. But when they rose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord, just like before. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. So it's increasing, right? Now Dagon has not only fallen over, but his hands and his head are cut off. So this is a sign. You got to get the symbolism here. First, God basically knocks over Dagon. Like this guy's nothing to me. But then he comes, knocks over Dagon, and cuts off his hands and head, meaning that he has absolutely no power. Okay. And so, verse 5, this is why the priests of Dagon and all who enter the house of Dagon do not tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. That's a little parenthetical note because obviously this is written after the fact. And so, therefore, up until up in the time of this writing, that they don't cross the tread or walk on the threshold of this temple of Dagon because Dagon fell over and his hands and his hands and his head were cut off. Right. So verse 6 says, and the hand of the Lord was heavy against the people of Ashdod, and he terrified and afflicted them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. Now, this word tumors is also translated hemorrhoids. All right. So and it's based on that it's talking about there were these swellings is what you could call them, swellings on the people in this territory. All right. And it says both Ashdod and its territory. So not only in Ashdod, the city, but also surrounding areas. God is showing them that, hey, I am the true God, not this Dagon guy, and I'm afflicting you, okay, because the ark doesn't belong here. All right, verse 7. And when the men of Ashdod saw how things were, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is hard against us and against Dagon our God. So very smart guys. They figured it out. It's interesting because Dagon is like this fish god. Remember, the Philistines are on the coast, they're sea people. And so their god obviously would be look like a fish. So they have this fish god, and so they're like, hey, the true God is more powerful than our fish God. Okay. Verse 8. So they sent and gathered all the lords of the Philistines and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? They answered, let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath. So they brought the ark of God of Israel there. Now, Gath, very interesting because Gath is going to come back up later on when we see David and his exploits. All right, but basically the Philistines are like the Ashdod Philistines are like, yeah, let's send this thing over to Gath because we don't need it. We don't need it here. All right. So, but after verse 9, but after they had brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city, causing a very great panic. And the and he afflicted the men of the city, both young and old, so that tumors or hemorrhoids broke out on them. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. But as soon as the ark of God came to Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, they have brought around us the ark of the God of Israel to kill us and our people. So they sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of the God of Israel and let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us and our people. For there was a deathly panic throughout the whole city. The hand of God was very heavy there. The men who did not die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. So we see verse 12 that not only did we have this tumor outbreak, but people also died based on, and the scripture is pointing to that based on these tumors or these hemorrhoids or these swellings, that people actually died because of them. So not only were they painful and inconvenient, but they also were deadly. So it says, but God's hand was heavy on these people. All right. Also, they have enough sense to know that, yeah, God, this God of the Ark of the Israelites and all this God is way more powerful than ours. Let's get this thing out of here. All right. All right. Verse chapter 6. The ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners and said, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us with what we shall send it to its place. Because they said, if you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but by all means return him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand does not turn away from you. So, interestingly enough, they're getting part of it right, right? That there should be some um, oblaescence for taking the ark, that God does require sacrifices, right? They don't quite get it all the way right because they don't know what God actually requires. Excuse me. But I think it's interesting that they're priests and diviners who are accessing the spiritual realm in an illegal way, and we can talk about that another time. But there, you can access the spiritual realm in an illegal way or an unauthorized way. It doesn't mean that you have no access. This is how we get people who are sorcerers or diviners or things. We're going to see this later on, even with Saul. You can access the spiritual realm, but but if you don't go through God, then you're accessing it in an unauthorized manner, and therefore you're not going to get the results that you desire. Okay. Um, so they said, verse 4. what is the guilt offering that we shall return to him? They answered, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For the same plague was on all of you and on your lord. So if you remember, back when we were dealing with Samson, remember there were 5 lords of the Philistines. So these are the same 5 lords. We see that they keep. It may not be the exact same 5 guys, but we see that whole system is still in place. So there's still 5 lords of the Philistines. And so we see here that they are giving them 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice. Now, the golden mice, uh, they believe that because these were golden, that somehow they were going to be magically able to remove the guilt and the curse from them. And then but we're not exactly sure why there's mice. Where did the mice come from? I don't know why they sent 5 golden mice. Okay, maybe they believe that mice, hurried the curse away, or something. I don't know. Right? We don't see what the mice is about, but we know what the tumors are about. All right. Verse 5. So you must take the images of your tumors and images of your mice that ravage the land and give glory to the God of Israel. So obviously there was something going on with mice that were ravaging the land, and then we find out here that God has also sent a curse of mice. So interestingly enough, we have tumors and we have mice that were in the land. And it's also, some scholars also believe that maybe those mice were carrying disease, and that may be what also helped kill these folks who died because of the Ark of the Covenant. So we don't get a full understanding of the mice. We understand the tumors, but we don't get a full understanding of the mice. It just says that ravage the land, and that word ravage means destroy. So, or mar. King James says mar, or destroy. So, not exactly sure what happened, but we know some mice were involved, right? It says, and give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will lighten his hand from off you and your gods and your land. Why should you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? After he had dealt severely with them, did they not send the people away and they departed? Now then, take and prepare a new cart and 2 milk cows, on which there has never come a yoke, and yoke the cows to the cart, but take their calves home away from them. And take the ark of the Lord and place it on the cart, and place it in a box at its side, the figures of gold, which you are returning to him as a guilt offering. Then send it off and let it go its way, and watch. If it goes up on the way to its own land, to Beth Shemesh, then it is he who has done us this great harm. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that struck us. It happened to us by coincidence. And so this sounds just like some divining kind of thing. And we have to be careful that we don't fall into this kind of divining trap where it's like, well, if this happens, then this must be God. But if this doesn't happen, it does not. It must not be God. Uh, I will tell you, there are times when it is appropriate and it's fine to ask God for some confirmation. Like, hey, Lord, I'm in this situation. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm trying to get some clarity, some direction. I'm not really clear. Can I get some confirmation? And that's all well and good. But when you start to rely on things lining up to say that this is God, then you can be led astray very easily, right? So this is the danger. I would say too. Also, just a quick aside: if you are looking for a way to get clarity and a way to understand what God's will is for you in a situation or an area, a good old fast will do. And I mean a real, I call it a true fast, a fast. That means no food, okay? Not fasting from social media or fasting from hamburgers. I'm talking about all food, just a good old fast. Drinking either, whether it's water or there's some other modifications, but a real good fast, nothing but water, for a certain period of time, will open you up and allow you to really hear what God is trying to say to you if you feel like you can't hear him that well. So, and I think I'm going to do teaching on fasting as well, biblical fasting, not not resisting. So anyway, I'm not going to go into details because some people call they call it Daniel fast, but that's not really a fast because they were eating. They just didn't eat certain foods. So that's not technically a fast. But at any rate, we can get into that another day. But a good old fast will help you see and understand what God is, and hear from God clearer um, than what you may be able to right now. All right. So, verse 11, and they put the ark of the Lord on the cart and the box with the golden mice and the images of their tumors, and the cows went straight in the direction of Beth Shemesh along one highway, lowing as they went. So they're making cow sounds, right? Beth Shemesh is the city of the Levites, by the way. And so it says, they turned neither to the right nor to the left, and the lords of the Philistines went after them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and when they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. The cart came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there. A great stone was there, and they split up the wood of the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. So like I said, the seers, the diviners, the sorcerers, they got part of it right, right? They sent these unblemished cows that had never been yoked, right? Because that is, interestingly enough, a proper sacrifice. And so they took these cows when they got there, took them, says they offered them as a burnt offering. So they took the wood, used that to burn up the cows, and offered as a burnt offering. All right. Verse 15, and the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was beside it, in which were the golden figures, and set them upon the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices on that day to the Lord. And when the five lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned that day to Ekron. So interestingly enough, they sat there long enough to see the ark of the Lord get to Beth Shemesh and be offered up. And they said, all right, everything must be cool. And they left. All right. Verse 17, these are the golden tumors that the Philistines returned as a guilt offering to the Lord. One for Ashdod, one for Gaza, one for Ashkelon, one for Gath, one for Ekron. All right. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the five lords, both fortified cities and unwalled villages. The great stone beside which they set down the ark of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. So again, as this is being written, that stone was still there, and that was these things were sacrificed on. All right. Verse 19, and he struck some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they looked upon the ark of the Lord. He struck 70 men of them, and the people mourned because the Lord had struck the people with a great blow. Now, excuse me, this looking upon the ark of the Lord was a violation of the law. Numbers 4, verses 5 through 6. You were not supposed to look at the ark of the Lord. It's supposed to be covered if it was not behind the Holy of Holies. So this was a violation of it. And so this does not, what this is not saying is that it was a glance. Like it wasn't like they, just glanced at it, or it wasn't like they were, because they had to move it. So somebody had to, move it. Obviously, there should have been Levites who were doing this process. Um, but the idea is that they were, gazing at the ark, right? That this was like they were doing more than just a glance, and so they should not have been able to view it at all. The Levites should have covered it up, but they did. So they were punished, based on the law, right? 70 men, right? And verse 20, then the men of Beth Shemesh said, who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God, and to whom shall go up away from us? So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, the Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you. And the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord and brought it to the house of Abinadab on the hill. And they consecrated his son Eleazar to have charge of the ark of the Lord. From the day that the ark was lodged at Kiriath Jearim, a long time passed, some 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. So remember, Hophni Phinehas, and Eli are all dead. So the high priest and the other priests are gone. So they had to find somebody to take the ark and care for it as a priest. And remember, Eli's house was not able to be in this in the Levitical lineage based on the curse that was placed on him. So this is where we get Eleazar and from the house of Abinadab, who is going to fill the role of being high priest, right? So, verse number 3. And Samuel said to all the house of Israel, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you. Now, I don't know if we've discussed the Ashtaroth, but Ashtaroth was used in pagan worship of Ashtaroth, who is a Canaanite fertility goddess, and they would use these poles. They'd have poles or trees in these areas, but they would do these sexual rituals on and near these poles. Makes you wonder where we get modern day sexual things done on poles. I'll let you ponder on that. But so they a lot of them, a lot of the Israelites were using these poles and these things, these Ashtaroth, and doing these kind of sexual things with these foreign gods, right? You're going to hear about Ashtaroth a lot going forward, especially in the Old Testament, because that was a snare. And that's a quick aside. Sexual sin is one of the most deviating, devious sins that we encounter as human beings, because it has such a pull. If you let it, it will have such a pull, and it will take you way further than you meant to go. So you may only meant to go a little bit, but it's going to take you a lot of bit. All right, so we have to be mindful of that. Be careful. In the New Testament, it says, "Can a man take fire in his bosom and not be burned, or in his chest and not be burned?" Talking about sexual sin, meaning that you should not be trying to hold any part of that at all, or you are going to get burned. All right, so so we see here it's a snare for them in the Old Testament, it's a snare in the New Testament. All right. All right. Verse 4. So the people of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtaroth. So Ashtaroth was the feminine god, the female god. Baal is the male god, okay, of the Philistines. And they served the Lord only. Now, this is critical, because they served the Lord before, but they served the Lord and these other things. Okay. So it says, and they served the Lord only, meaning that they are now not going to be mixing God with these other gods. Okay. And I've talked about that before. I'm not going to rehash that. But at any rate, I'm going to stop right there for this session. We are going to pick back up in 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 5. Thank you for joining me this time, and I look forward to the next time. Again, we do have a 6:30 virtual Q&A session. If you want to join, it's on the link is in this post. And also, if you have any questions or anything you want to ask, you can definitely drop it in the chat in this. If you're watching this on YouTube, or in the comments on Facebook, wherever this is being shown, you can definitely get to me. I would love to answer your questions and go over anything in the scriptures that we've gone over today, or anything that you have questions about as it relates to the scriptures. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you like and subscribe, it really helps me a lot. I appreciate it. And until next time, be blessed. Take care. Love y'all.